Hey everybody, just as a reminder, I'm a narrator on Chilling, the awesome horror app that features over 1,000 horror stories, over a dozen narrators, some of who you might know from YouTube, as well as full-length novels and exclusive series, and Chilling originals. You can select and change the ambient sound on the background of these stories whenever you want without affecting the story that you're listening to. And we release hours of new stories every week. Click the link in the description to download and start your free trial to see if you like it. For years, I was the guy to call if you had a squirrel in your attic. I mean, to a lot of people, I'm still that guy, but over the last 20 years, I branched out to other less common infestations. Now I'm the guy you call if there's a haunted doll rummaging through your attic, or a Sasquatch is trampling your flower beds. I love my job. The specializations that I've acquired have allowed me to travel across the country, meet incredible people and experience cryptids like few have ever done before. It doesn't hurt that the pay is great, but the stories are even better. I have one short story for you now. It's more of a public service announcement than anything else really. I've dealt with every sort of infestation from Sasquatches. Spray human urine around area of sighting and it will avoid the area. Demonic presences. Usually need to bring a priest in. Sometimes can be tricked into inhabiting a lesser creature, like a frog. And jackalopes. It's just a bunny with some antlers. Put it in a cage and give the poor thing a carrot. But recently there's been one cryptid that has been growing more and more invasive into human settlements. The hide-behind. Most commonly found in the forests of the northern United States and Canada, the hide-behind is one cryptid that cannot easily be dealt with. In fact, I'm not sure it's even possible for one of these to be bagged and tagged like we normally would with other cryptids. To my knowledge, no hide-behind has ever been killed, maimed, dazed, or even simply removed from a residence. Once it has made a claim to an area, whether it be a local forest, a cave, or even in one particular case, a Bass Pro Shop, it will defend that area to the death. First documented by the Native Americans, then by lumberjacks in the PNW of America, the hide-behind is one of the lesser known, but cryptids on the continent, but without a doubt one of the most dangerous. No one really knows what they look like. As the name suggests, as soon as they are seen, they quickly duck out of view to hide behind anything in the vicinity. In the wild, this would be trees and rocks. In your home, it could be a corner, a kitchen cabinet, a television, or literally anything else that they can manipulate their body to hide behind an object of any size. In the few accounts of these sightings that we have on record, they have been described as everything from a lion-bear/lion hybrid to a frail and elderly woman with long arms and rashes on her skin. Because of this wide discrepancy in their descriptions, they are believed to be shapeshifters that can change their shape based on what they believe will best get their potential victim to come closer and investigate the sighting. I don't know why the hide-behinds are moving into suburbs. I would guess destruction of their natural habitat, but it is becoming a real problem. That's why I'm going to share this story with you now, so you know what to do if one shows up in your home. I pulled up to Tim's house around 12 p.m. on a Tuesday. He had called in to tell us that there was a demonic entity in his house and that we needed to remove it ASAP. They always demand ASAP. Tim had nothing going on, but people are so much more demanding than they were 20 years ago. I took a quick look around the house and it was pretty apparent that there wasn't any sort of demon in this residence. Not only was there no reaction to the holy water and a Ouija board that I brought with me, but Tim also didn't have normal symptoms of a demonic haunting. Bad dreams, sleep paralysis, or the witnessing of any telekinetic events. After further questioning, he described what he had seen in more detail. First, I was sitting right there on the couch watching television when I got the feeling that I was being watched. I turned my attention to the screen door, and for just a second, I saw a bear looking in through the screen. But it wasn't a bear, you see. A bear would just keep on staring at me or keep poking at the door. But this thing just ducked out of view as quick as can be. It was like it was trying to sneak up on me, and I had caught it in the act. And it bothered me something awful, but I just grabbed my gun and set it on my lap and kept on watching TV. And eventually that feeling like I was being watched just kind of melted off. It was all peaches and cream until she showed up a few days later. The she that Tim was referring to was a new human form that the hide behind was taking. I assumed that it was because of the lack of reaction to the bear form that it had previously shown itself as. Like I said earlier, the hide behind wants you to look for it, to come closer, like an anglerfish. It dangles something in front of you in an attempt to bring you closer. It's a lazy hunter. I was out in the garage in my workshop, and that feeling came over me again, that being watched feeling. I turn around and I'm looking out the garage door and I don't see nothing, but then out of nowhere I see a lady's head and shoulder pop out from the corner of the garage. And the second that she sees me eyeing her, she pops right back around the corner from where she came from. Well, this time, I went looking around for her. I gave her a wide berth around the corner, because I used to live in New York City for a year in the 70s, so I've seen crazy people. And she looked crazy and I didn't want her grabbing me. So I gave a wide berth around that corner and there wasn't no one there. I walked all around the house and I didn't see anyone, not even footprints. Tell me that ain't demonic. It wasn't demonic. It was a hide behind, and I told the man as such. I told him living out here on the edge of town made him an easy target for it. I told him that there really isn't any way to get rid of them or scare them off. I told him that he could try to leave his house for a year at minimum, and maybe, with some luck, it would leave on its own. But the best bet would be for him to burn the place down and never come back. Well, he didn't like that answer. My family lived in this house for 3 generations. I ain't leaving, and I sure as heck ain't burning nothing down. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'll keep my shotgun on me, and when I get that feeling, I'll shoot it. It works for bears, and that's the meanest thing around these parts. Don't see why it wouldn't work for this, what you call it, a hide behind. You can't argue with anyone over the age of 65. People get set in their ways and their beliefs calcify. So instead, I was honest with him. I told him 2 things. The first thing that I told him was that eventually he would get that feeling that he was being watched, and he would get his gun and start looking around for the hide behind. Only he wouldn't find it. That's what happens in all these cases, because at that point, it found the best hiding spot that it can possibly get. The only place you won't be able to lay eyes on it, even if you tried. Directly behind you. And at that point, it's too late for you. The second thing that I told him was that I'd be back in 2 days and more than likely he'd be dead. And then I left. 2 days later, I pulled my van up to Tim's driveway to find the screen door open and blowing in the wind. I didn't even need to cross the threshold of the house to find him. He was everywhere. On the floor, the ceiling, the walls. The smell was unbelievable. I poured some gasoline on the front porch and lit it with a match. The house was an inferno within 30 seconds. I got in my van and started to pull out of the driveway, and I took one last look at the house and then behind it, into the tree line where I saw for just a split second a young boy before he quickly pulled back and disappeared behind a thin little tree. I was hundreds of miles away by lunchtime. I say all of this to tell you, if you ever think you might have a hide behind in your house or even in the area, leave. Burn the place down if you can, so new people don't move in. These things are like bears. If they know that they can get food someplace, they're just going to keep on coming back. And if you get that feeling that you're being watched and you just can't figure it out, call your loved ones, because it's standing directly behind you. A few days ago, I posted a PSA on this website about what to do if you encounter a hide behind in your local area. Well, a few hours after that, I checked my inbox and had about 1,000,000 questions from 250,000 people. What kind of van do you drive? 2003 Dodge Sprinter van with a rat man sprayed painted on the side. Will my body wash attract a succubus? No, but they are intensely attracted to frustrated virgins, so you may or may not have a problem there. Can I come along with you on one of your jobs? Absolutely not. I barely make it out alive myself half the time. But the most common question that I received was, how'd you get your start in the business? Now, I'm a busy man, like I said in my last post. Halloween is right around the corner, and this is my peak season. Unless you'll want your toddler winding up in a house where half of the Halloween decorations ain't actually decorations, well, then you gotta let me get to work. So in lieu of answering how'd you get your start in the biz, to all of y'all individually, I'll post the story of my first job here to nip any further asking of that question in the bud. In the year 2000, I was 22 years old and just starting out my life in the biz, as y'all have been putting it. Pulling snakes out of toilets and charging down skunks using a trash can as a shield against its spray. I loved the job. Wasn't any different than what I did as a kid growing up in Middle Georgia, only now I was getting paid for it. Money wasn't great, but small town living is cheap and it kept a roof over my head and food on the table. Over time and through word of mouth, my little business grew until I was the premier rat man in Taliaferro County. Granted, the county population was less than 2K, so business wasn't exactly booming, but hey, I'm proud of it. One day I'm in my truck, this was back before the van, in a Taco Bell drive-thru, and I got a call on my cell. Unknown number. I answer, Taliaferro rat man, you need something? The voice on the other end was frantic, screaming about something stuck in his mudroom, but he wouldn't give any specifics. I could tell from the man's accent and his clear discomfort in the idea of an animal being in his house that he was city folk. You know, a real-life Atlanta dandy. Some of those city folk had 2 homes on the nearby lakes, Oconee and Clarks Hill. But I was shocked when he told me that his home was in Union County, nearly 130 miles away. I asked him how he got my number, and he told me that he had found one of my business cards on his kitchen table. I told him that I would be there in 3 hours and hung up. Now here's the fishy part. I didn't have any business cards. I still don't, but I still get calls. Sometimes people call me saying they found my card on the kitchen table, or in their pocket, or slipped up under the windshield wiper of their car. One lady about 10 years ago said that she got out of the shower and my phone number was written right there on the fogged up bathroom mirror. That woman straight up thought that I was the devil until I got that family of puckwudgies out of her basement. Got them jealous by talking loudly on the phone about how much nicer and more expansive a nearby cave system was than this horrible basement. After that, she thought that I could walk on water. Truth is, I don't know what's pushing business my way. I don't know why I was chosen to do the work. I do, but that's the fact of the matter. I was chosen for it. Well, anywho, back to my first job. I pulled up to the client's house, or I guess the better word for it would be compound. The property was completely surrounded by a 7-foot-tall security fence that contained the main house, a small chicken run, a sauna, and a handful of small windowless buildings that dotted the forested property. After speaking to the owner via intercom, he remotely opened the gate and greeted me as I pulled up the driveway of the main house. He was a wiry, rat-faced, dead-eyed man who looked and smelled like he hadn't showered in days, maybe weeks. His greasy hair clung to a greasier forehead as he reached his open hand towards me. Hello, we spoke on the phone. My name's Dave. His accent betraying him as a foreigner in these parts. Elmer, I replied. Not from around here, Dave. Oh. Dave's face dropped as if he was upset that he had been so easily discovered as an outsider. Oh, no, not from the south. This is a vacation house for the family and I. The winters down here are mild compared to up north. I couldn't believe this guy had a wife smelling like he did. Where's the family? I'm down here doing some maintenance just for the week. The whole family won't be down here for another 2 months or so. Alright, what's the problem? Dave stepped close to me, I mean really close, like Eskimo kisses close, and asked me, You deal with this stuff often, huh? Your card makes it seem so. Thankfully, he took a step back. Honestly, I'm not even sure where I got this card in the first place. So, got that card on you, Dave? Yeah, here. He handed the card over to me. It was a plain white business card with black text that read, Elmer Ratman Boggs, Animal Control and Cryptid Specialist. His prices are unbelievable. The back of the card had a little picture of a ghost along with my phone number. It's at this point that I should tell you, these cards are different every single time. I still don't know where they come from, and I stopped caring too. Each one has some stupid pun on it. He's got the spirit. Half price on April Ghoul's Day. I've even seen one that had a picture of me wearing a French maid's outfit, with the words, Plagued by paranormal entities. Call Elmer, splashed across it. I don't like that one, and I have no idea where that picture came from, so don't even ask. Yeah, I deal with these kinds of things all the time, I said. Now show me where the critter's at. Dave led me down the hill on which the main house stood and out to one of these smaller buildings that punctuated the tree line. It's in here, Dave said as we approached a small shed about 10 by 10. A large padlock held the door in place. I thought you said it was in your mudroom, I asked. Well, yes, while I was panicked on the phone, I suppose, Dave explained. As you can see, we keep chickens here, and when the boys are here, we like to go hunting. This is where we clean and butcher our animals. Good enough explanation for me. Alright, open it up. Dave opened it up and practically ran back towards the main house as I stepped into the room. It was all white, painted cinder block walls, fluorescent lighting, laminate flooring with a drain in the middle of the room. A large hook hung from the ceiling to hang a deer carcass. There was a countertop with a sink and a few drawers, probably knives in there, a wall-mounted security camera. I would like to know more about that, but what really demanded my attention was floating on air in the top corner of the room facing the wall. It was a human head. I couldn't believe it. Nowadays, this is an average Wednesday, but imagine you're in my position. Your neighbor calls you over to help get a raccoon out of the attic, and then you get there and he's like, oh wait, never mind, it's a decapitated human head. Oh yeah, and it flies around like a helium balloon. That's right, folks, a floater on my first day. A real trial by fire. I didn't panic, not sure how, but I didn't. I took a step back slowly, but apparently not slow enough as I watched the head turn to face me. It was a woman's head with long black hair, eyes gouged out. Black dried blood caked all over it, and it had a tail. A few inches of a spinal column sticking out of the bottom. I stepped out of the shed and slammed the door before it did anything else. Dave called to me. I turned to see his smelly butt calling from an upstairs window of the main house. Guy was just gonna leave me to die out here. Can you get rid of it? Oh yeah, buddy, I can do that. I was talking out of nowhere, but we need to talk. I told Dave that I could get it out, but that it would be expensive, very expensive. Also told him that I would need some time, a few days. I made it some BS about rituals and waiting for the correct phase of the moon, but in all reality, I had no idea what I was going to do, and I just needed enough time to look around on the internet to figure out what the heck I was dealing with and how it should be handled. I told him that I would have to go home to get things ready, but that I would be back in a few days to fix his floating head problem. He made a counteroffer. He would give me a cash advance right now and to go into town and gather all the necessary supplies for rituals and the cleansings, and I could stay the night on the property so that I wouldn't have to drive 3 hours home. He would also give an additional bonus if I could have the cursed noggin removed within the next 24 hours. I asked him if he had internet access, and he said he did, so I accepted. I could kill 40k rats and still not make the money that I was going to make in the next 24 hours if I could pull this off. I took the extremely generous cash advance and zipped out of the compound to buy my supplies. I drove the 40 minutes south to an old gold mining town and found an electronics store where I bought a laptop computer and a mouse. That's all that I really needed. But I couldn't go back empty-handed when I had promised an elaborate ritual. So I popped into a few of those novelty gold mine stores and bought some fool's gold, a few pretty rocks, a nice hat, and that was just for me, and a peacock feather. Then I headed back to the compound. I spent the entire drive back pinching myself, wondering if I had finally lost my marbles, questioning my faith, replaying every single episode of X-Files over and over in my head. I decided that it didn't matter if I was crazy or not. Either way, it was happening. I got back to the compound, parked the car, and brought my newly bought equipment up to the room that I would be using on the second floor of the main house. And then I asked Dave for the key to the shed. I wanted one more look at the head. I slowly opened the shed door and I peeked inside. The head was still floating in the top corner of the room facing the wall. I stood for a while watching it. It slowly bobbed up and down as if floating in water. I watched what little of the neck was left vibrate as gentle moans emanated from it. I cleared my throat. The head slowly turned towards me. Its expression didn't change. It didn't lose any elevation either. It seemingly wasn't interested in me at all. I took a quarter out of my pocket and tossed it up towards the head, where it had planked off its cheek and bounced onto the floor below. The head remained neutral. This thing didn't give a crap about me. Might as well have called it my dad. I left the shed, locked the door behind me, and headed up to my room to do some research. This was the hardest part when I started this gig. How do you tell the difference between a gnome and a leprechaun, a fairy and an elf, a wendigo and a skinwalker? What happens if you get it wrong? Well, I'll tell you what happens. You get hurt or you die. 6 years ago, I made the mistake of misidentifying a band of Namaragar as Rocky Mountain Hill Dwarves, and I lost 2 fingers and a bite-sized chunk out of my butt. I've learned my lesson the hard way. Research, research, research. It's the name of the game. And this was a tough case to start with. Floating heads appear all over Native American lore, especially in the Iroquois and Wyandot histories. But their heads were different. For one, they had wings and talons. The one that I was dealing with floated. And they're also like 6 feet tall, and this one was just your regular-sized, disembodied head that just so happened to have taken flight. There is also the behavior. The Iroquois version of the head just kind of flew around and terrorized anyone who was unlucky to have stumbled upon it, while the Mohawk histories say that it's out for revenge against those who gave it an undignified death. But the big problem with oral histories is that they change. One day someone can't remember something, so they throw the wrong wrinkle in there. It's like a centuries-long game of telephone that started with Jessica has great hair and ends with death metal head eats babies. At least this head didn't seem to mind my company. It wanted whatever was in the direction of that top corner of the shed that it was entombed in. I just couldn't for the life of me figure out what that was. I had a hunch, but nothing solid yet. I looked at the clock and realized that it was nearly midnight. I opened my door to head to the bathroom to go to the bathroom and wash my face before bed, and I ran directly into Dave, who had seemingly been standing right outside my bedroom door. "Big day tomorrow," he said. "Yes sir, big day. Will you get it done? Does the Pope wear a funny hat?" Amusing. He didn't smile. "I'm fixing to wash my face before bed, and we'll be out there bright and early tomorrow morning." "We'll?" Dave didn't seem happy to be included in that last sentence. "Oh yes sir, I need your help with the ritual," I said back to him. "It's a 2-man job." "This isn't what I'm paying you for," he sneered. Oh, don't worry, you don't have to do nothing. Just need you in the room. I was talking out my butt again. Nothing too big, just need you holding a peacock feather is all. He exhaled from his nose sharply and stared at me with his dead black eyes for a few seconds before marching off. Good night. I was washing my face in the bathroom and realized that I never picked up an extra toothbrush when I was in town. Now, I don't know about where you're from, but people that I know always have an extra toothbrush laying around, especially people with families like Dave said he had. So I did a little light snooping through the drawers in the bathroom, and you know what I found? Well, it wasn't a toothbrush. It was a loose panel on base of the bathroom counter. I quietly pulled it back and found, stuffed inside, a hammer in a plastic bag. I opened the plastic bag and dumped the contents into my hand. Driver's licenses, a dozen of them at least, all women. I fingered through them quickly, looking at the pictures. Names and dates when one of them caught my eye. Misty O'Connor. I recognized her immediately because you never forget the face of the first flying decapitated head that you see. You just don't. I don't make the rules. This guy, Dave. My hunch was right. The cameras, the multiple deer cleaning shacks, the 7-foot security wall to protect you from what, Dave? The extremely high turkey population of Union County. No way, Jose, I knew what I was going to do. The next morning, Dave unlocked the shack and held it shut while I gave him instructions. He was going to stand off to the right side of the shed, while I went into the room and tied a blindfold around the head. Once the head was blind, I would signal him to come in and he would place the peacock feather in the head's mouth. And then I told him the head would disintegrate into a fireball, and that he could pay me the rest of my money. It was all crap, of course, but if brains was made of leather, old Dave could hardly saddle a June bug. I took over holding the door from Dave and motioned for him to walk off to the right side of the shed. I felt the pressure on the other side of the door relax as the head floated to the right, following its sense of where Dave was. I entered the shed and found the head floating at chest height, gnashing its teeth at the wall that protected Dave. Hey Misty, shh, it's okay. I told the head in the same voice that I use for dogs and cats and sometimes lizards. I'm on your side. We're gonna get this son of a gun. I looped a piece of cloth around the head, covering the empty sockets where the eyes used to be, and I held the two loose ends in my hand like a leash. The head pulled gently, as if agreeing to my unspoken plan. My other end held the piece of fool's gold for literally no reason, other than convincing crap for brains Dave that my plan was totally legit. Aye now, Davey, come on in. I shouted towards the open door. The head of Misty O'Connor pulled the leash gently, following the path that Dave took as he walked the perimeter of the building. Dave then appeared in the doorway looking like a total idiot, by holding out his peacock feather towards the head like a priest would hold a crucifix towards a vampire. So all I have to do is put the feather in its mouth? Dave asked, his voice cracking and clearly terrified. I fake strained and sucked in a few short breaths, pretending to be fighting for my life, holding back this monster. Just do it already, I can't hold it for much longer. Dave shrieked as he shoved the peacock feather into Misty's mouth. The head slowly pulled the feather in with its lips and teeth and gave a few over-exaggerated cow-like chews before swallowing. The mangled feather dropped from the open neck at the bottom of the head and landed on the floor with a wet plop. I stopped straining and started to relax. It's working. It's losing energy. I shouted at Dave in fake exhilaration. So that's it? Dave asked, catching his breath. We killed this thing. The head tugged on its leash a little harder at the last word. Yeah, we got her, I said back. Well, then I don't need you anymore. Dave said as in one fluid motion he pulled a knife out from behind his back and he lunged at me. Everything went according to plan. I released the blindfolder leash and Misty was on Dave like a pit bull on a preschooler. First, she bit his knife-wielding hand off at the wrist, and then in a split second of confusion, she bit a sizable chunk out of his neck. Dave collapsed in a heap on the floor, trying to bat his one-time victim with his remaining hand, but she was far too quick for him. By the time that he tried to swat her, she was already on the other side of his body, biting off another chunk. Eventually he stopped fighting, and that's when it got really ugly. He lay on the floor of his kill room crying and begging for mercy, like so many women had done before, and just like those women, he wouldn't get any. I looked away, but the horrible sound of breaking bone made me look back. Misty's jaw was unhinging, breaking, expanding. Then, like a boa constrictor, she began the tedious process of slowly, almost tenderly, swallowing him whole. She started at the feet, which were easy enough, but around the thighs she began to flick her chin forward and tilt her head back to help the fresh meat go down. Less snake-like and more Komodo dragon-like. Dave screamed the entire time. The last thing to go was one of Dave's outstretched arms, which she greedily slurped up like a noodle. I'm not going to lie, once she finished it was awkward. We both just kind of looked at each other for what felt like an eternity. Eventually I had to break the silence. It just felt too weird, so I said, "Bye, Misty." And then I immediately felt like an idiot for saying something so stupid. I mean, what am I, 5? After another few seconds, Misty erupted into a small fireball and completely vanished. Turns out I was actually right about that part. Felt good to be right. I phoned the police and answered their questions when they showed. Told them that I was here for an appointment and noticed some weird stuff, and they searched the property, and that was that. They found 2 other girls, one was still alive. Of course, they think that Dave is on the run, but it is at least it gave some families some closure. And then I walked back to my truck, upset about not getting paid more than the advance which I had already spent, when I felt a weight in my pocket. I reached in and pulled out an envelope of cash. That's how it works, a lot like the business cards. I have no idea how it just shows up and I don't ask questions. Yeah, I hope this has answered some of your questions. Maybe after Halloween I can answer a few more for y'all, or maybe I could tell you about the 2 years that I spent traveling. Either way, I hope you enjoyed my stories, and if you ever need me, you already have my card.